It is 1547, and somewhere in the English countryside, a woman is having the best day of her life. She has servants, she has money, she has freedom, she answers to nobody. Her name is Anne of Cleves, and 6 years ago, Henry VIII looked her in the face and called her a horse. So how exactly did she end up here? Let's go back. Henry VIII in 1539 was not the young golden king anymore. He was heavy, he was sick, his leg had a wound that never healed, and some days it smelled so bad that people tried not to stand too close to him. He was in his late 40s, which in Tudor England made him practically ancient. He had buried one wife, divorced another, beheaded a third, and the one woman he actually loved, Jane Seymour, had died 12 days after giving birth to his son Edward. Henry was miserable, and Henry needed more sons. One boy was a very thin safety net for the entire Tudor dynasty. So his advisor, Thomas Cromwell, started shopping. Cromwell found Anne of Cleves, German, Protestant, noble family. No scandal, no drama, politically perfect. The only problem was Henry had never seen her. So Cromwell sent the greatest painter in England to Germany, Hans Holbein the Younger, a genius whose portraits everyone in Europe trusted completely. Holbein painted Anne, and when that portrait arrived in England, Henry felt something he had not felt in years. Excitement. He called her beautiful. He agreed to the marriage immediately. For the first time since Jane died, Henry was actually looking forward to something. Now before Anne arrives, we need to talk. Anne of Cleves was not stupid. She had grown up watching politics her entire life. She knew exactly what this marriage was. Not a love story, a transaction. Henry needed heirs. Anne needed security. She just had no idea how bad it was going to be. Anne arrived in December 1539, and Henry could not wait. He dressed in disguise and rode to surprise her like a knight in a fairy tale. He burst into the room. Anne glanced at him and went back to watching the bull baiting outside the window. Henry stood there completely ignored. He left shortly after. He pulled his advisors aside and said 4 words. I like her not. He called her the Flanders Mare. He complained about everything, but the marriage contract was signed and canceling it would be a diplomatic disaster. So Henry gritted his teeth and got married, January 6th, 1540. He looked like he was attending a funeral. The wedding night did not happen. Anne had no idea anything was wrong. The next morning, her ladies asked if she might be pregnant. Anne said the king came to bed, kissed her goodnight, and went to sleep. Her ladies stared at her. Anne said, "Is that not enough?" 6 months passed. Henry was already obsessed with a teenage girl named Catherine Howard. He wanted out. His lawyers found grounds quickly. Never consummated. Case closed. Now Anne just had to agree. Every other wife had fought. Catherine of Aragon refused until she died heartbroken. Anne Boleyn schemed until she was executed. But Anne of Cleves sat down with the papers and thought clearly. She was in a foreign country. No army, no allies, no leverage. What exactly was she fighting for? The honor of being married to a man who called her a horse. She picked up the pen. She signed. She wrote Henry a letter so gracious and free of bitterness that Henry felt genuinely embarrassed. Anne let go of the crown and grabbed something much better. Henry's guilt made him generous. £500 a year, Hever Castle, multiple properties, jewels, servants, and a title no divorced wife had ever received. The king's beloved sister. They had dinner together, exchanged gifts. Henry was more relaxed around her than any other wife. She had no agenda. She was the only one he actually enjoyed. Now watch what happened to everyone else. Catherine Howard became wife number 5. Henry called her his rose without a thorn. Then he found out about her past. She was beheaded in 1542, probably 17 years old. Cromwell was executed in 1540. Henry himself died in 1547. Body destroyed, leg rotting, surrounded by people who feared him. Anne of Cleves sent her condolences from her mansion, where she was absolutely fine. She outlived Henry by 10 years, died peacefully in 1557, comfortable, independent, safe. She had outlasted every single one of his wives. So go back to that image at the beginning. A woman in a mansion, gardens, money, freedom. Henry met her and felt cheated. But Anne looked at Henry and saw exactly what he was. A dangerous, vain, aging man who needed to feel powerful. And she gave him that. She smiled and signed and stepped aside and let him feel like he had won. And then she took his houses and his money and went and lived a long, peaceful, happy life while he rotted away on his throne. Henry thought he was getting rid of Anne of Cleves. He had absolutely no idea. She was getting rid of him.